Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. On the agenda tonight we have Allan Holdsworth. Now Allan was a player more known for his jazz playing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to queue up two videos. This first one's going to be in 1974, and it's going to be something that I think more people can kind of relate to, or at least kind of understand a little bit. And then we're going to queue up a second video that's going to be more kind of jazz based, which might kind of lose some people, but just as an example to show his different styles of playing and kind of what he's got in the locker. But let's get Allan up on screen and see how he's getting on. This is from 1974. I'm just going to stop it there. This isn't going to be a long video, this first one, but you can see here that it's such great technique Allan's got. He's got that real fantastic legato technique, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and he's so smooth all over that fretboard. And it's interesting because I did a video on Eric Johnson last night playing Cliffs of Dover, and I said in that video that you can never predict where Eric is going with his lines and with his runs. And Allan, you know, you can take that same principle and kind of move it up a notch. Allan's one of those guys that, because he's so rooted in jazz, that you can never predict where these lines are going to go. Certainly in this first performance, he's a little bit more kind of mainstream, and some of the lines he's playing aren't that out there, aren't too, I mean, there's a lot of jazz-based runs in there, but it's kind of on a lighter jazz kind of note here. And it's not surprising that Alex Lifeson and Joe Satriani, Frank Zappa, all these great players reference Allan as an influence on their playing, and you just got to look at the technique to see why. In this first video you can start to kind of relate them to the key of the song. Sometimes when he plays and he kind of goes more into that jazz kind of realm, you really have to be on the ball to kind of see where he's going and kind of hear what he's playing. What I tend to do is really listen out for the bass lines, to hear your root notes, to really kind of hear those layers on top that Allan's putting in there. He's not going off-piste with his playing, and it's a really great example of his legato playing, his hammer-ons, pull-offs, and just his overall technique. But I'm going to just play the end of this video. It's just 19 seconds more. And then the video suddenly stops, it suddenly cuts out. But that last little bit of technique as well, Allan's got that ability where he just has got so many runs. He can literally just play endless runs. I'm sure that if he wanted to, he could do it kind of endlessly. Another thing to mention is his endurance. I mean, playing runs for this long with no break in between, you need to have some endurance in those fingers. And a lot of players out there who have played, you know, 3-note per string scales for any length of time, or any kind of excessive tapping, you'll know that if you haven't done it for a while, your fingers take a little bit of time to get back up to speed and to get that endurance in order to then keep playing those hammer-ons and pull-offs for, you know, 30 seconds or a minute. It really does take a lot of endurance in the fingers, and Allan certainly plays for such long periods. I'm going to queue up the next video now, which is going to be a lot heavier into the jazz realm. So brace yourselves, we'll have a little look at Allan's playing, and I'll be back in a second with the next video. Okay, so I'm back with the second Allan Holdsworth video. This is Allan playing Where Is One, and let's have a little listen and see how he's getting on. This is going to be more heavy jazz here, so let's have a little listen. And I'm just going to stop it there because there'll be some people watching this and it's just kind of, whoosh, you know, going straight over their heads. And I have to be honest that this kind of playing is really, even for people that play guitar and study music, keeping up with Allan is so difficult, knowing where he's going and what he's going to be doing next. In the Eric Johnson video, there was a melody that you could catch on to, whereas Allan doesn't give you that luxury. He's just going to throw these lines just one after the next, and you're not going to know where he's going to go. The main thing here, really, if you're listening to it and you're just listening to Allan's guitar, then you're probably going to get a bit lost as to what's going on here. What you really need to do is try and listen to the guitar, but listen to the bass, because when Allan plays lines and the bass and the key changes, often it's going to be in a different time signature than you're used to as well. But listen out for those bass changes, because then you'll hear Allan just nailing those notes with those changes, and he's kind of playing in the key that the bass is changing to. The bass is running all over the place, and that's why it's hard to keep up. But he is nailing these scales, and all the expression and all of those notes are so relevant to the bass, to the key that he's playing in. But it's so fast, it's really difficult to keep up. And this is the kind of music, obviously this is not going to be mainstream, you're not going to hear this on the radio, but by itself, you know, you can, especially as a player, I can appreciate the quality of playing legato, the smooth sound of his runs, and also always look out for vibrato. Whenever Allan does take a little break, you can always hear that nice slow wide vibrato that he uses as well. So yeah, Allan, he's one of those guys that for the real kind of aficionados of guitar, he's one of those guys that people look up to. I mentioned the guitarist before that have named him as an influence. So Allan, a really great player. And as we saw in the first video, if he wants to, he can play mainstream. He can play blues and whatever scale you want him to stick with, he can do. But then when he's kind of just let free like this, he'll start exploring, you know, avenues that you never knew existed. And Allan is one of those players that somehow he can break up his playing into a conscious decision, even though it's subconscious speed. There's some of the changes there that when you're listening to the bass, he's totally on it with the key changes, but somehow he's making those split-second decisions whilst playing at a speed that most people, it would just be totally subconscious. You know, they'd play their 15-note phrases and then get into another long phrase as well. Whereas Allan's just totally all over it, and he can just, at a split second, change scale and change whatever mode he might be in, or change the expression of what he's playing, or even just go into something that you just totally weren't expecting. So yeah, Allan, not one of those videos that is for everyone, but I've got to have a look at him just because of his technique and the fact that he was so great and influenced so many later great players. But anyway, thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys at the next one.